Good day, grade 12. Welcome to Winter School 2025. I'm Ms. Lamour, and for this session, we will be focusing on how to answer questions for paper 2. Right, so why are you here? We are here to particularly focus on how to answer questions, how to interpret questions, and also the amount of information you need to give when answering questions. Right, so for paper 2, I'm not going to go through paper 1. We've already covered that. So for paper 2, we know the two main topics is business ventures and business roles. And then under business ventures, we have the following subtopics: management and leadership, investment securities, investments insurance, presentation and data response, forms of ownership. And then for business roles, we have professionalism and ethics, creative thinking and problem solving, team performance and conflict management, human rights, inclusivity and environmental issues, and social responsibility and CSR and CSI. So thus far, you should have covered under business ventures up until investment insurance, and then under business roles, you should have covered up until team performance and conflict management. The topics that are not highlighted, those are the topics that will be covered in term 3. Right, so for business ventures, we will focus on the following: management and leadership, investment securities, investment insurance. And then for business roles, we will focus on professionalism and ethics, creative thinking and problem solving, team performance and conflict management. So we are going to do a pre-test, which will be a section A type question. And then at the end of the session, you can mark your test. So you will have about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to complete the pre-test. So question 2, we're looking at leadership, and question 1, that would be the pre-test, which would be the multiple choice. Choose the correct word and match column A with column B. Question 2 is management and leadership. Question 3 will focus on investment, insurance, investment securities. Question 4 will team performance and conflict management, creative thinking and problem solving, professionalism and ethics. Right, so question 2 to 4, those would be section B type questions. And then for question 5 and 6, that would be section C to essay questions we will look at. So that question 5, business ventures, investment securities, and then question 6, which is business roles, team performance and conflict management. All right, so let's get started. So we will start with a pre-test, which is section A type questions. So you would have received a workbook so that you will answer in your workbook. So you'll have about 15 minutes to complete the test. So the pre-test consists of multiple choice, choose the correct term, and then match column A with column B. So just a reminder of how to answer section A type questions, right? So the multiple choice, remember you're given options. There are 4 options. You're given a statement. You have to choose one option. So you read through the statement. If you know the answer, you write down the answer. If not, you go through a process of elimination. Look at the ones that don't match the statement, and then the ones you're left with, the one you're left with, that would be the possible answer. And also for multiple choice, remember, choose only one option. Don't choose more than one. If you're going to choose more than one, it will be marked incorrectly. So just choose one option. Then for the so multiple choice would be question 1.2, 1.1, sorry. Then choose the correct term from the list given. That would be 1.2. So when you choose from the list given, please choose the word as is from the write it down as is from the list given. Don't change the word and only choose one option. Same with then for 1.3, which is match column A with column B. There you also just choose one option. So for each you're given 5 terms and there are 10 options. For each term there would be 2 possibilities which are closely linked, of which one would be the correct answer. Right, so the pre-test, you are going to have about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to complete the pre-test, and then at the end of the session you will mark the pre-test. Alright, so section A, the multiple choice. So remember, we read the statement, we look at the options, we choose the answer, and we write only one letter. So for 1.1 there are 5 questions. Then when we move on to 1.2, there you are given a list of terms, and there are 10 terms, there are 5 statements. For each statement there are 2 possible answers, one of which is incorrect, and only choose the correct one. And obviously remember to write it as is from the list given, don't change the wording. And then we have match column A with column B. Okay, let me just go through that. Right, match column A with column B. So there are 1.3, that would be match column A with column B. There you have 5 terms, concepts, and you have 10 possible answers, 2 of which, so 2 for each of them, each concept, one of which is incorrect, and just choose one. Alright, just moving along, sorry. Right, moving along to section B type questions. Right, so remember section B type questions, remember those action verbs. Look at the mark allocation of the question to determine how many facts you should give. So if the question does not specify the number of facts, you try to write as many facts as possible in order to get maximum marks. If the question specifies the number of facts, please stick to the number of facts, because the marker will only mark what is required. So if it says state 3, they will mark the first 3 only. So if you list 5, they will mark the first 3 only. Remember the cognitive verbs, the action verbs. So when we went through paper 1, we looked at the cognitive or action verbs in the question. So some of the action verbs: list, name, identify. There you give 1 word or 2 word. When it says discuss, explain, elaborate, outline, suggest, recommend, they were write in full sentences. And also remember, also try to write your facts below each other and not next to each other. And also remember the mark allocation, how we allocate the marks. We have split ticks depending on the action verb. So if it says discuss, explain, elaborate, we will award split ticks. If it says suggest, recommend, outline, we will award double ticks. Right, so we're going to work through section B type questions, the question on leadership and management. Alright, so let's look at question 2.1. It says read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. Island Enterprises. Jackie, the general manager at Island Enterprises, uses her personality to influence subordinates to work hard. She is mindful of the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. So the question 2.1.1, identify the leadership style used by Jackie in the scenario. So remember, with management and leadership, we have different leadership styles. There are 6 different leadership styles, which is democratic, autocratic, laissez-faire or free rein, transactional, charismatic, bureaucratic, And we have three leadership theories. The three leadership theories: situational, transformational, leaders, and followers. So please don't get confused between leadership styles and leadership theories, or transformational and transactional. Transformational is a leadership theory. Transactional is a leadership style. So please don't get confused between that. So important to note there what we need to know there. We need to know a definition of each of the management style, leadership style, as well as situations in which you can apply each of these styles. So where you're given scenarios, looking at the question 2.1, you're given a scenario and you obviously have to answer. So the question says identify the leadership style. So you read the case study carefully, highlight keywords in the case study before you answer the question. So we need to know the definition, the situations in which you can apply the various leadership styles, and also the impact of each of these leadership styles. So remember, the impact refers to the advantages and or disadvantages. So which means you can either discuss the advantages only or the disadvantages only, or you can discuss a combination of the two. So the question says identify the leadership style used by Jackie in the scenario. So if you read the scenario, it says Jackie, the general manager at Island, uses her personality to influence subordinates to work hard. So the leadership style, they would be charismatic, using their charm to influence subordinates to work hard. Right, the second question says advise. So look at the action verb, they advise. So double ticks will be awarded. Advise Jackie on the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. All right, so what is personal attitude? That is a good personal attitude. Basically, it's a attitude helps the leader, guides others successfully, and creates a positive working environment. So personal attitude refers to how the leader thinks, feels, behaves towards others and their work. And it also helps the leader to motivate and inspire, build good relationships, stay calm during challenges, and make fair and confident decisions. That is a definition of personal attitude in successful leadership. So advise, so double ticks will be awarded. So for 4 marks, so they're not specific as to the number of facts that you should give. So 4 marks, each fact would normally count 2 marks. But as I said, if they are not specific as to the number of facts, you give as many facts as possible to obtain maximum marks. Right, so let's look at the answer. Positive attitude releases leadership potential. A leader's good attitude can influence the success of the business. Leaders must know their strengths and weaknesses to apply their leadership styles effectively. A great leader understands that the right attitude will set the right atmosphere. That's for 4 marks. So remember, you're not limited to giving 2 facts only. You can give as many as possible to get maximum marks. Right, moving on to the next one. So this question here, question 2.2. This question refers to leadership theories. Remember, you must be able to distinguish between leadership theories and leadership styles. So if you read the scenario, it says high quality designers wants to improve the quality of their products. They encourage and motivate their employees to adapt to change quickly. Management always applies the leadership style that suits the task at hand. HQD is aware of the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. So the keywords there, so the question says identify 2 leadership theories. So we're not looking at leadership styles now, we're looking at leadership theories. Remember, there are 3 leadership theories, which are situational, transformational, leaders, and followers. So there are 2 parts to this question. The first part, identify the 2 leadership theories applied by HQD. Second part, motivate by quoting from the scenario. So remember, when we quote, we have to take out the quote as is. Please don't change the quote, otherwise you won't be awarded the marks. Right, so identify 2 leadership theories applied by HQD. First one is transformational. How do we know that? They encourage and motivate the employees to adapt to change quickly. Transformation means change. So it says there they encourage and motivate them to adapt to change quickly. So that would be transformational, which means change. Then the second one would be situational leadership theory. Right, management applies the leadership style that suits the task at hand. HQD is aware of the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. Right, so situational leadership theory would be applied the style that you would apply that depends on the situation. So how the marks will be allocated there, you'll get 2 marks for naming the leadership theory and then 1 mark for the quote. Right, moving on to the next question. Alright, 2.3 says distinguish between the democratic and autocratic leadership style. So the action verb there is distinguish, and we should know what democratic leadership and autocratic leadership style is. Right, so it says distinguish. So here split ticks will be awarded, and the mark allocation there is 8. So for each leadership style, you need at least 2 facts. At least, you can give more, they're not specific as to the number of facts. So for each leadership style, you can give 2 facts for each, but not limited to 2. Right, so the democratic leadership style is where the leader involves employees in the decision-making process. Autocratic, the leader takes all the decisions without involving employees. Democratic leadership style is a clear two-way communication, ensures group commitment to final decisions, whereas autocratic leadership style, the line of command is top-down, followers know exactly what to do. Democratic, people-orientated, as employees' feelings and opinions are considered, whereas autocratic, it's more task-orientated, as the opinions of employees are not considered. With democratic, the workers feel empowered as they're involved in decision-making process. With the autocratic, new employees feel confident, safe, as strong leadership is provided. Democratic leadership useful when the leader depends on the inputs of experienced followers. Autocratic, it's useful in a crisis situation. For example, after an accident, you can't still consult, so the leader has to make the decision on his own. So you'll see there's submax 4, that means you'll get 4 marks for the democratic leadership style and 4 marks for autocratic, which gives a maximum of 8. But remember, you don't have to limit yourself to writing only 2 facts for each one. Right. Moving on to question 3, business ventures, insurance. Please take note of the following. Do not confuse the 2 concepts under insurance and the average clause. Under insurance is when you are not insured for the full value of the asset that you've insured, and if you are underinsured, the average clause will apply. Also, you need to know how to calculate the average clause, so you need to know the formula. And also, when you do a calculation, not only for insurance or the average clause, any calculation, show all your workings. In case your final answer is correct, the marker will also look at your workings in order to get to be awarded 2 marks. Right, question 3.1. Pro cover insurers. Yolanda owns a holiday house in Durban valued at 2 million. She insured the house with Pro cover insurers for 1.5 million. A fire in the main bedroom caused damages of 100,000. She submitted a claim for the full amount of the damages. Right, so the question says name. So you need to know the clause that will be applicable to your lender's claim in the scenario above. So because the value of the house is 2 million, but it's only insured for 1.5 million, which means she's underinsured. So if she's underinsured, the insurance won't pay out the full amount because she's underinsured. So the average clause will apply when they make a payout. So the question says name, action verb, insurance clause that is applicable to your lender's claim in the scenario above. And average clause, so they will be awarded 2 marks. Then 3.1.2, it says elaborate on the insurance concept identified in question 3.1.1, which means you now need to elaborate on the meaning of the average clause. Right, so the average clause, it's a stipulation set by the insurer which is applicable when property or an asset is underinsured. The insurer will pay the insured for losses and damage in proportion to the insured value. So that means she won't be covered for the full 100,000, which was the loss that she has incurred because she's underinsured. So the insured that will now be your lender, will be personally liable for the part of the risk that was not covered by the insurer. Right, so the mark allocation, there's 4 marks, which means at least 2 facts. You can give more, but at least 2 to get the maximum marks. There are 4. Right, then still relating to the same question, it says calculate the amount that Procover Insurance will pay your lender for the damages she suffered. And then the question also says show all calculations. Right, so the value of the house was 2 million. She only insured it for 1.5 million, so she's underinsured. And then a fire in the main bedroom caused damages of 100,000. So that means she won't be paid out the full 100,000. She's going to be responsible for a portion of the loss because she's underinsured. So you write down the formula. So the amount insured, she was insured for 1.5 million, and the damages or loss that she suffered was 100,000, and then we divided by the value of the insured item. So if you want to remember, you can just look the smaller amounts times each other on top and the bigger amount, which is the 2 million at the bottom, and then the answer you get should be less than the 100,000, the loss that she suffered. So in this case, the insurance will pay out only 75,000 rand because she was underinsured, and that is 4 marks. So if you write the formula, you will get 1 mark, and if you put in the values in the formula, another mark, and then 2 marks for the final answer. If your final answer is correct, we award the full 4 marks, but you need to show all your calculations in case your final answer is incorrect so that you can still obtain a mark somewhere, whether it's for the formula or whether you've substituted the values into the formula. So show all your workings, not for any calculation. But then still relating to 3.1, explain to your lender the reasons why she did not qualify for the full amount of the damages. So remember, she was underinsured, so she's going to be responsible for a portion of the loss that she suffered. The insurance is not going to pay out the full amount. So the reasons why she did not qualify: house is insured for less than the market value. The market value is 2 million, but she only insured it for 1.5 million, so she won't be paid out the full amount for the loss of 100,000. Or she was underinsured, and when you're underinsured, the average clause will apply, so that would be 2 marks. About 3.2. Sam's computer was insured for 6,000 with an excess payment of 500. When it was stolen, the insurer paid out 5,500 to Sam for a new computer. Question: elaborate on the meaning of the following insurance concepts. Excess. Alright, so now when you take out insurance, remember there's a clause that states there's an amount that you have to pay for excess should you suffer any losses. So which means insurance won't pay out the full amount because you are liable for that excess amount. So elaborate on the meaning of the following insurance concepts, right? Excess, so the action verb there is elaborate, so split ticks will be given. So excess is the amount that the insured agrees to pay should they claim for losses or damage. Excess payments keep insurance premiums lower and they discourage fraud. So the reason why people have to pay excess is to discourage people from claiming unnecessarily for losses. Also, do not confuse the meaning of excess with shares, as this concept was asked for the first time in the 2021 final exams under Section A. You can also expect it to appear under Section B for 4 to 6 marks. Then the next insurance concept we're looking at is reinstatement. Right, it says elaborate on the meaning of reinstatement. It is a stipulation whereby the insurer may replace lost or damaged goods instead of reimbursing the insured. That means if you suffered a loss and you have insurance against the asset or goods that have been insured, the insurer will pay you out the insurer will replace the damaged property instead of paying you out in cash. Or you can say the stipulation is applicable when goods are overinsured. So reinstatement, if your goods are overinsured, that means the insured amount is more than the market value, and the insurer won't pay you out more than what you've insured for. So the stipulation is applicable when goods are overinsured. That would be 4 marks. So elaborate, split ticks. Explain the difference between over and under insurance for 4 marks. Right, so before we look at this, you also need to know the principles of insurance and also the difference between insurance and assurance. So the principles of insurance: indemnification is based on short-term insurance, while security is based on long-term insurance. So you need to have an in-depth understanding of all 4 principles of insurance, and we advise that these principles form part of the insurance contract. Right, so we explain the difference between over and under insurance. Right, so over insurance we know is the item is insured for more than the actual value. Right, so for example, the value is 2 million, but you insure it for 2.5 million. So you are overinsured. So if you are overinsured, the principle that would apply there is the reinstatement. And also businesses will not receive a payout larger than the value of the loss of that asset. But under insurance is when the item is insured for less than the actual value of the asset. And when you're underinsured, the average clause will apply to calculate the amount that must be compensated for the insured. That's 4 marks. So for each concept there, you need 1 fact which is worth 2 marks, 2 marks each. But remember, you are not limited to 2 only. You can write as many as you want unless otherwise stated, unless they state the number of facts. Right, next question. Discuss the following principles of insurance: indemnification. Right, indemnification for 4 marks. Indemnification, this applies to short-term insurance. Right, so discuss, remember, split ticks. So indemnification, so short-term insurance, the insured is compensated for a specified loss right? Something that a risk that you've insured against, like fire or theft. It protects the insured against a specified event that may occur. Right, the possibility of something that might happen, fire, etc. Right, the next one, security, also for 4 marks. Right, a security applies to long-term insurance, where the insurer undertakes to pay out an agreed amount upon in the event of loss of life. So with security, uh, aims to provide financial security to the insured when they retire or to the dependents of the deceased. So security is more would apply to long-term insurance, whereas indemnity would apply to short-term insurance. Right, 3.5, distinguish between insurance and assurance and give one example to support your answer. So there we have 2 questions in one. The difference, distinguish between insurance and assurance, and also given one example of each to support your answer. Right, so insurance is based on the principle of indemnity, whereas assurance is based on the principle of security or certainty. Insurance will cover a specified event that may occur. Assurance, a specified event. The specified event is a certainty, but the time of the event is uncertain. So our marks will be allocated here. So 4 marks for the explanation, 2 marks for the explanation of insurance, 2 marks for the explanation of assurance, and then 1 mark each for the example, which give you 5, submax 5. So the maximum there would be 10 marks then. Right, 3.6, distinguish between insurable and non-insurable risk. Give 2 examples of each to support your answer. Right, so 2 parts to the question. First question, distinguish between insurable and non-insurable risk. And the second part, give 2 examples of each to support your answer for 6 marks. Right, insurable risk. These are risks that insurance companies would insure depending on the likelihood of the event. Non-insurable risk, a risk that insurance companies would not insure due to the high cost or high risk involved. Examples of insurable risk: fire, theft, burglary. Examples of non-insurable risk: losses caused by war, changes in fashion, advancement in technology. So 2 marks each for the explanation and then 2 marks for the examples. Also take note, a clear distinction must be made between insurable and non-insurable risk. So focus on the word risk, not assets, so that you do not confuse insurable and non-insurable risk with the types of assets that should be insured. Discuss the importance of insurance for businesses. Right, when you explain the importance or advantages of insurance, do not confuse it with the meaning of reinstatement and indemnification. Also, do not refer to the advantages of insurance on individuals. If you look at the question above, it says, discuss the importance of insurance for businesses. So do not confuse it with the advantages of insurance for individuals unless it's specified, or the benefits of COIDA as a company, as a compulsory insurance. Also take note that the keyword protect appears, if you look at the answer there, the keyword protect appears 4 times in this content, and the word transfer appears twice, but in different contexts. So these keywords may assist you to formulate statements on the advantages or benefits of insurance. Right, so the benefits of insurance, discuss their action verb. Split ticks will be awarded. So it protects the business against theft, loss of stock, or any damages caused by natural disasters. Second tick, protects the business. Tick, against dishonest employees. Protects businesses from claims made by members of the public for damages that the business is responsible for. Protects businesses against losses due to the death of a debtor. Transfers the risk from the business to the insurance company. Transfer of risk is subject to the terms and conditions of the insurance contract. Right, the next question. Electric-Co Limited offer electrical repair services to households and businesses. Each electrician is allocated a company vehicle to travel to clients. One of the electricians sustained an injury during the performance of the duties. Question 3.8.1. Identify two compulsory insurances payable by Electric-Co Limited. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. 6 marks. Right, so here you have two questions. First question, identify two compulsory insurances payable by Electric-Co Limited. And the second question, motivate by quoting from the scenario. Right, so the two compulsory insurances is the Road Accident Fund. They allocated a company, so the motivation there, each electrician is allocated a company vehicle to travel to clients. So if something happens on the Road Accident Fund will cover. The second one, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Fund Act or Fund, COIDA. One of these electricians sustained an injury during the performance of the duties. So you will be awarded 2 marks for identifying the two types of compulsory insurance and 1 mark each for the quotes. Remember, once again, the quote you have to take out as is from the passage. Don't change the wording. Quote means as is. Question 3.8.2. Discuss the two types of insurance identified in question 3.8.1. Alright, so we need to discuss the Road Accident Fund as well as COIDA. Right, so the Road Accident Fund insures road users against the negligence of other road users. A Road Accident Fund is funded by a levy on the sale of diesel and petrol. So the mark allocation there is 4. Discuss, you'll get split ticks. So at least 1 explanation there. And then COIDA compensates employees for injuries and diseases incurred at work. And also employees do not have to contribute to this fund. So when explaining COIDA as a type of compulsory insurance, do not explain the compensation fund in context of an act whereby penalties for non-compliance are applied. Right, so this question requires you to explain COIDA. Some candidates also confuse COIDA with the Road Accident Fund and UIFS types of compulsory insurance. Right, next question. 3.8.1. 3.8.3. Discuss maternity benefits as a type of benefit paid out by the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Right, so discuss maternity benefits. So split ticks will be awarded 4 marks. So 2 facts for 4 marks, but remember, you are not limited to 2 facts. They are not specific as to the number of facts, so you give as many facts to obtain maximum marks. Right, so pregnant employees receive these benefits for up to 4 consecutive months. If an employer has a miscarriage, she can claim for up to 42 days. Also, other benefits. An employed female contributor to the UIF may apply for maternity benefits when she goes on maternity leave. Also, to qualify for the benefits, she must be receiving less than a normal wages while she's on maternity leave. Right, our next topic will be investment securities. So here we're going to look at the different types of investments. So please don't confuse fixed deposits with RSA retail savings bonds and unit trusts as forms of investment. So when looking at RSA retail saving bonds and unit trusts, focus on the minimum amounts required to invest. Also, investment decision factors must be linked to the decision to invest. Research examples of type of investments, opportunities, and forms of investments that are relevant to each investment. The best method to study different types of shares and types of preference is to use a table. When identifying different types of preference shares from statements, do not write ordinary shares instead of ordinary preference shares. Also, do not confuse the meaning of liquidity with liquidation. Liquidation we covered in business strategies. Liquidation is when the business goes bankrupt, they close down, they sell all the assets. And also do not confuse return on investment with the period of investment. Right, question 3.9. Discuss the following factors that should be considered when making investment decisions. Right, liquidity. So liquidity basically refers to the speed at which and ease at which you can convert it into cash, your investment into cash. So for 2 marks, an amount could be invested in a type of investment that can easily be converted into cash. So liquidity refers to how easily you can convert your investment into cash. It is used to describe the ease and speed with which investors can convert an investment into cash. That's 2 marks. Return on investment. This refers to the income from the investment, either in the form of interest, dividends, increased capital, or the growth on the original amount invested. High risk investments yield higher returns. Next. 3.10. Evaluate the impact of the following forms of investment. RSA retail savings bond. Remember, when we have to discuss or evaluate or explain the impact, we're looking at the advantages and or disadvantages. So the RSA, the retail savings bond, you are guaranteed returns as the interest is fixed for the whole investment period. And then also interest can be received twice a year. The disadvantages there, investors need to have a valid South African identification, which may discourage foreigners to invest. A minimum of 1,000 Rand must be invested, which may be difficult for some small investors to accumulate. So 4 marks for that question. Then unit trust. Advantages, managed by a fund manager who buys the shares on the JSE. Easy to cash in when an investor needs money. Disadvantages of unit trusts, not good for people who want to invest for a short period, and also not good for people who want to avoid risk. Also 4 marks, the mark allocation. Right, so now we're going to move on to question 4, which is business roles, where we have team performance, conflict management, and professionalism and ethics. Right, so 4.1, identify the criteria for successful team performance. Right, so you are given 3 statements, and for each statement, you need to identify the criteria for successful team performance applied by Sankey Engineering. Right, so remember the criteria for successful team performance is interpersonal attitudes and behavior, shared values and mutual trust and support, communication, cooperation and collaboration. 4.1.1. Team members meet deadlines with a commitment to reaching the team goals. That would be shared values, mutual trust, and support. All 4.1.2, all the team members participate in decision making, cooperation, and collaboration. 4.1.3, they have open and honest discussions leading to effective solutions to problems. So the answer there would be communication. 4.1.4, team members have a positive attitude of support and motivation towards other members of the team. So that would be interpersonal attitude and behavior. So each one of these worth 2 marks. 4.2, differentiate between grievance and conflict and give one example of each to support your answer for 6 marks. So a grievance is when an employee is unhappy, who has a problem or complaint in the workplace. Conflict is a clash of opinions, ideas, viewpoints in the workplace. A grievance is when an individual or group has a work-related issue. Conflict, disagreement between 2 or more parties in the workplace. Examples of a grievance, discrimination, example of conflict, miscommunication. So the mark allocation here would be 2 marks each for the explanation of grievance, and 2 marks for the explanation of conflict, and then 2 marks for your examples. Right, 4.3. The latest shuttle services provide transport service for tourists in Sharpeville. Albert, a well-experienced employee in the transport industry, refuses to take instructions from management. Njabulu, the supervisor at LSS, is always arguing and fighting with the clients. 4.3.1. Identify the types of difficult personalities displayed by Albert and Njabulu. Motivate by quoting from the scenario. Right, so we know the difficult types of difficult personalities. We have the complainer, we have the indecisive one, the overagreeer, the negative one, the expert, the quiet one, and the aggressive one. Right, so Albert would be the expert. How do we know that? He's a well-experienced employee in the transport industry. So the quote there, a well-experienced employee in the transport industry, he refuses to take instructions from management. And then Njabulu, the aggressive one, the supervisor at LSS, is always arguing and fighting with clients. So the mark allocation there, get 2 marks each for naming the difficult personality, and then 1 mark for the quote, which gives you a total mark of 6. So if you identify the type of personality incorrectly, you won't get marks for the quote. Right, so marks won't be awarded for the motivation if the type of difficult personality was incorrectly identified. 4.3, same case study, different questions. Recommend one strategy that LSS can use to deal with each of. So one strategy to deal with the expert, and one strategy to deal with the aggressive type of personality. So the mark allocation, the cognitive verb, action verb is recommend. So 2 marks will be awarded for the strategy. So for the expert, know your facts. The aggressive one, do not allow them to be hostile towards others. So the mark allocation there, 4 marks. 4.4. Explain the importance of team dynamic theories in improving team performance. Right, so team dynamic theories explain how effective teams work or operate. Businesses are able to allocate tasks according to the roles of team members. 4.5 explain how businesses can create an environment that promotes creative thinking in the workplace. And so this question is asked in grade 10, 11 and in grade 12, so you should be familiar with this. Maximum 6 marks. Explain, so split ticks will be awarded. And remember, they are not specific as to the number of facts, so you give as many facts as possible. So encourage alternative ways of doing things. Emphasize the importance of creative thinking to ensure that staff know that management wants to hear their ideas. Make time for brainstorming sessions to generate new ideas, such as regular workshops. Place suggestion boxes around the workplace and keep communication channels open for new ideas. Train staff in innovative techniques such as creative problem solving, mind mapping, lateral thinking. Encourage job swaps within the organization. Study how other businesses are doing things. Respond enthusiastically to all ideas and never let anyone feel less important. Reward creativity with reward schemes for teams that come up with creative ideas. Provide a working environment conducive to creativity, free from distraction. Right, so 6 marks would be 3 facts, but remember you're not limited to 3 facts because the question does not specify the number of facts. Right, next question. 4.6, discuss the advantages of creative thinking in the workplace. So there we have the keyword there, discuss. Split ticks will be awarded. 4 marks. Remember, you are not limited to 4 facts, 2 facts only. Each fact normally counts 2 marks, but the question does not specify the number of facts, so you are not limited to 4 only. To 2 facts only for 4 marks. You can write as many as possible to obtain maximum marks. Better unique ideas or solutions are generated may give the business a competitive advantage. If unusual, unique solutions are implemented, complex business problems may be solved. Productivity increases as management and employees may quickly generate multiple ideas which utilizes time and money more effectively. Managers have more confidence as they can live up to their full potential. Managers will be better leaders as they will be able to manage changes positively and creatively. Managers and employees can develop a completely new outlook which may be applied to any task they may do. Leads to more positive attitudes as managers and employees feel that they have contributed towards problem solving. Improves motivation among staff. Managers, employees have a feeling of great accomplishment and they will not resist or obstruct the process once they solved a problem or contributed towards the success of the business. Right, question 4.7. Outline the difference between problem solving and decision making for 8 marks. So the action verb there is outlined, so double ticks will be awarded at the end of your fact. So problem solving, problems can be solved by a group, team or an individual team member, which makes it inclusive. Decision making is often done by one person, a member of senior management, which makes it authoritarian. Problem solving, alternative solutions are generated and identified and critically evaluated, whereas decision making, various alternatives are considered before choosing the best one. Problem solving, process of analyzing the situation to identify strategies to bring about change. Decision making, it is part of the problem solving cycle as decisions need to be made in each step. So the maximum marks there is 8. So for each one, 4 marks, submax 4, which gives you a total of 8. Next question, 4.8. Read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. Mary Textiles intends to introduce a new product range in the summer collection. They considered all the supporting and opposing ideas for change. MT has requested employees to generate new ideas aloud in large groups. Identify 2 problem-solving techniques used by MT. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So the first part of the question, identify 2 problem-solving techniques. So 2 marks will be awarded for identifying each problem-solving techniques. The second part of the question, motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So for the quote, 1 mark will be awarded. And then once again, remember when we quote, we take it out as is from the passage, we don't change it. So the 2 problem-solving techniques, there's force field analysis and brainstorming. That gives you 2 marks each. Motivation for force field analysis. They considered all the supporting and opposing ideas for change. Motivation for brainstorming. MT also requested employees to generate new ideas aloud in large groups. Please don't get confused between brainstorming and the nominal group technique. Brainstorming is done aloud, whereas the nominal group technique, you are divided into groups, but you brainstorm silently. 4.9. Tech Carpets is a large business that specializes in manufacturing of carpets. TC did not declare all the income to the South African Revenue Services for the previous financial year. Employees make personal calls during working hours. TC also used fine print to hide important information when promoting their products. Identify 2 types of unethical business practices applicable to TC. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So the first part of the question, identify 2 types of unethical business practices. So if you remember correctly, the types of unethical business practices is pricing of goods in rural areas, unfair advertising, and tax evasion. Those are the 3 unethical business practices that we did. And then the 3 types of unprofessional behavior: sexual harassment, unauthorized use of workplace funds or resources, and abuse of work time. So please don't get confused between unethical behavior and unprofessional behavior. So the question here wants 2 types of unethical business practices. So the 2 types of unethical business practices are either taxation, or you can also say tax evasion. And the quote for that would be, TC did not declare all the income to the South African Revenue Services for the previous financial year. And unfair advertising, that's the second unethical business practice. TC also used fine print to hide important information when promoting their product. So you get 2 marks for identifying each unethical business practice and 1 mark for the quote, which gives you a total of 6 marks. 4.10. Mesh Constructions specializes in property development. The directors and employees know the employment policies of the company. MC appointed Gobolo auditors to audit their financial statements. Management conducts their business in a professional, responsible, ethical, and effective manner. Question 4.10.1. Identify 2 King Code principles for good corporate governance applied by MC. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. So there are 2 parts to the question. Firstly, you need to identify the 2 King Code principles, and we know the 3 King Code principles that we did was transparency, accountability, and responsibility. So you need to identify the 2 King Code principles that is applicable to the scenario. And then secondly, motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So it says they use the table to answer the question, to answer question 4.10.1. It's optional to use the table, but it's just better for the person marking your work. So the marker, when you use the table, You do it in table format, it's just easier for the marker. Right, so the King Code principles, there's transparency and accountability. The motivation for transparency, the directors and employees know the employment policies of the company. And the quote for accountability, MC appointed Gobolo auditors to audit their financial statements. So 4 marks for identifying the 2 King Code principles and 2 marks for the quote, which gives you a maximum of 6 marks. Now question 4.10.2. Explain ways in which professional, responsible, ethical, and effective business practice should be conducted. So the action verb they explain, so split marks will be awarded. So maximum of 8 marks, but also once again take note, there's no specification as to the number of facts you should give, so you can give as many as possible to get maximum marks. Refrain from starting a venture using other businesses' ideas that are protected by law. Mission statement should include values of equality and respect. Treat all employees equally regardless of their race, color, gender, disability, etc. Employees should respond swiftly and fairly to reported incidents of discrimination in the workplace. Plan and put preventative measures in place. Tasks should be given respectfully. Allow the recipient or employee to have a say in the manner in which tasks should be performed. Treat workers with respect and dignity by recognizing work well done. All workers should have access to equal resources. Pay fair salaries, which is in line with the minimum requirements of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, or remunerate employers for working overtime. Alright, so for split ticks, you state the fact, that's the first mark awarded, or the first tick awarded, and then the second tick would be awarded for justifying. So if you look at the one, mission statement should include 1 mark. What should it include? The values of equality or respect, another tick. Same with the next one. Employees should respond swiftly and fairly. Why? To reported incidents of discrimination in the workplace. The next one, treat workers with respect and dignity. How? By recognizing work well done. Okay, so now we've come to the end of section B type questions, and now we're moving on to section C, essay questions. Just to recap again, when we do the essay question, remember we have the specific layout for the essay question. We have 32 maximum marks for facts, and then there's the 8 marks for the layout of the essay. So remember, we start with writing the word introduction. For our introduction, we need 2 introductory facts. So for the 2 introductory facts, look at the 4 bullet points that you need to discuss in the essay and choose any 2 facts that you won't be including in the body or in the conclusion. Alright, so after you've written the word introduction, and you've written the 2 facts, then you will have 4 subheadings, which is the 4 bullet points that you need to discuss. After you've discussed the 4 bullet points, you write the word conclusion, and you write 1 concluding fact which you haven't mentioned in the body or in the introduction. Right, so for question 5, we're going to look at business ventures, and the topic there, investment securities. So they give you the preamble. Investing in a fixed deposit provides investors the opportunity to decide whether they want to receive simple interest or compound interest. Investors must also consider various types of shares before making investment decisions. Some invest in companies that are listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Securities Exchange. Write an essay on investment securities in which you include the following aspects. Outline the differences between simple and compound interest. Explain the advantages of a fixed deposit as a form of investment. Discuss any 3 types of shares. Advise businesses on the functions of the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. So the first bullet point outline, you'll get double ticks for your facts. The second and the third bullet point, explain and discuss, their split ticks will be awarded. And then the last bullet point for essay questions will be advise, and you will be awarded double ticks for that. It's just another reminder, please don't repeat the preamble that is given at the beginning of the question, because that is seen as repetition and no marks will be awarded for that. So right, we start off by writing the word introduction. So for the introduction, you need at least 2 facts. So you look at the 4 bullet points and then you choose any 2 facts that you will not include in the body or the conclusion. Right, so you can write the following: simple interest and compound interest enables investors to cater for their investment needs and financial planning. Fixed deposit is a popular form of investment as the risk is low in relation to other forms of investment. Various types of shares offer different types of dividends, risk and risk associated with them. The JSE is a formal market that regulates the activities of the financial markets in an orderly manner. So any other relevant introduction, either related to the 4 bullet points, so you can give a fact on simple and compound interest, a fact on fixed deposits, a fact on shares or the different types of shares, or any fact on the JSE. So for the introduction, you will get 2 marks. Right after the introduction, you will have our 4 subheadings. So the first subheading, so when you write the word introduction, the marker, and you've written 2 facts underneath that, the marker will indicate with the L next to introduction. That is for the layout of the essay. So there you already receive 1 mark. Right, then the second bullet point says, the first bullet point, outline the differences between simple and compound interest. So outline, there you will be awarded double ticks at the end of your fact. Simple interest, interest earned on the original amount and not on the interest accrued, whereas compound interest is earned on the original amount as well as interest earned in previous periods. Simple interest, the principal amount remains the same over the entire period of the investment. Compound interest, the principal amount grows with the addition of interest to it. Simple interest, the interest is kept separate unless it is reinvested. Compound interest is calculated on the higher principal amount and again added to it. Simple interest yields less return on the investment, whereas compound interest yields a higher return on the investment. And in simple interest, the total amount of interest earned on the investment is less, whereas with compound interest, the total amount of interest earned is high. So therefore each one, therefore simple interest, the submax is 4, and compound interest, the submax is 4, which gives you a maximum of 8. But once again, you are not limited to giving 2 facts for each one. Write as many facts as possible to get maximum marks. But the second bullet point says explain. So your next subheading, explain the advantages of a fixed deposit as a form of investment. Interest is earned at a fixed rate regardless of the changes in economic climate. The period of investment can be over a short, medium or long term. Investors can choose the investment period that suits them. The principal amount plus interest is paid out on the maturity date. Ensures financial discipline as investors cannot withdraw their funds before the maturity date. And then investors earn a better return on investment than an ordinary savings account. The higher the principal amount or the longer the investment period, the higher the interest rate offered by the financial institution. So you see that it says maximum 10 marks, but you are not limited to 5 facts. Your next subheading, 3 types of ordinary shares, or discuss any three types of shares. So we have ordinary shares, so you get 2 marks for naming the type of share, and you're going to get 4 marks for discussing the type of share. Alright, so ordinary shares, 2 marks. Ordinary shares only receive dividend when profit is made. Normally, the higher the net profit, the higher the dividend. Shareholders are the last to be paid if the company is declared bankrupt. Dividends vary from year to year according to the profits made and are determined by the board of directors or the company. Shareholders have a right to vote at the AGM. Shareholders are paid last and receive dividends after the preference shareholders. So 2 marks for naming the type of share and 4 marks for explaining, which gives you a submax of 6. Right, then we have preference shares. 2 marks for naming preference shares, and then 4 marks for the explanation as well. Some of these types of preference shares receive dividends regardless of whether profit is made. Shareholders will receive their return dividends at a fixed rate even if the profit is large. Shareholders have a preferred claim on company assets in the event of bankruptcy or liquidation. These shares enjoy preferential rights to dividends over ordinary shares. Dividends are payable according to the type of preference shares. Voting rights are restricted to particular circumstances. Cumulative preference shareholders will receive outstanding dividends from previous years. Non-cumulative preference shareholders will not receive any outstanding dividends from previous years. Redeemable preference shares can be redeemed at the option of the issuing company on a predetermined future date. Non-redeemable preference shares are only bought back when the company closes down for reasons other than bankruptcy. Convertible preference shares are converted to ordinary shares after a fixed period when the preference shares were issued. Non-convertible preference shares will not be converted into ordinary shares. Then we have founder shares, 2 marks. These shares are issued to founders and incorporators of the company. They receive dividends after all other shareholders were paid. And then the last one, bonus shares. Payment in the form of shares to shareholders issued as compensation for unpaid dividends. Shareholders will own more shares and collect more dividends in future, and shareholders receive these shares without being required to pay for them. And so the maximum there is 16 marks. So we have 2 marks for naming the type of share and 4 marks for explaining. Right, in the last bullet point, advise businesses. So your next subheading, advise businesses on the functions of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Securities Exchange, sorry. Right now, this question is almost in every paper, whether it's section B or section C. This question is almost in every paper every year. Right, so advise there, you'll get double ticks at the end of your fact. Gives opportunities to financial institutions such as insurance companies investing their surplus funds in shares. Serves as a barometer of economic conditions in South Africa. Keeps investors informed by publishing share prices daily. Acts as a link between investors and public companies. Shares are valued and assessed by experts. Small investors are invited to take part in the economy of the country through the buying, selling of shares. Venture capital market is made possible on the open market. Strict investment rules ensure a disciplined market for securities. It raises primary capital by encouraging new investments in listed companies. Mobilizes the funds of insurance companies and other institutions. Regulates the market for trading in shares. Plans, researches, and advises on investment possibilities. Ensures that the market operates in a transparent manner. So here you can also give as many facts as possible because they're not specific as to the number of facts. So that is the last bullet point. And then thereafter we have, so if you have the 4 subheadings, the marker will indicate an A next to the last bullet point, which is for analysis. So you have all subheadings. And the second A would be allocated if your facts add up to 16 or more. Will be allocated a second A. Then we have the conclusion. Right, so you need one fact for your conclusion, which is worth 2 marks. So you write the word conclusion, and then anything that you haven't mentioned in the body or in the introduction, you can write in the conclusion. So the knowledge of simple and compound interest will allow an investor to further research on the latest development investment opportunities. Investing in fixed deposit enables small and large investors to invest in this form of investment option due to the flexibility of the period of investment. A better understanding of different types of shares may enable investors to choose the best type of investment. Ordinary South African citizens have an opportunity to participate in the economy of the country by investing through the JSE. So you'll see that the last bullet point says any other relevant conclusion related to any of the 4 bullet points which you haven't discussed in the introduction or in the conclusion. And then also remember the FLASO, the maximum you can get for facts is 32. Then there's the L for the layout, where you've written the word introduction and you've written something underneath, 2 facts underneath introduction. The A for analysis, you have the 4 bullet subheadings, the 4 bullet points that you had to discuss as subheadings. You get 1A, and then if your facts add up to 16 or more, you get the other A, which gives you 2 for analysis. Then the other L would be for conclusion, the other 1 mark for the L. So if you write the word conclusion and you have 1 concluding fact, which gives you the 2 marks for the L in FLASO. And in synthesis, if you're on topic, if you're not completely off topic, you get the 2 marks for this S. And your originality, remember you need 2 current examples relating to any of the 4 bullet points. Right, moving on to question 6, business roles, which is on team performance and conflict management. Right, so you're given the preamble. Businesses encourage employees to work in teams, which may lead to conflict sometimes. For this reason, it is important for businesses to familiarize themselves with the stages of team development. They should also find ways to deal with conflict and difficult people in the workplace. Write an essay on team performance and conflict management in which you address the following aspects. Outline the characteristics of successful team performance. Discuss the 4 stages of team development. Explain how businesses could handle conflict in the workplace. And then lastly, suggest ways in which businesses could deal with difficult people in the workplace. So remember, we start off with the word introduction, 2 introductory facts relating to any of the 4 bullet points. We have our 4 subheadings, and we end off with the word conclusion. We write the word conclusion, and we end off with 1 concluding fact relating to any of the 4 bullet points which you haven't already discussed in the introduction and in the body. Alright, so the introduction. Teamwork is the interaction with team members to achieve a common goal. The most successful teams are not always the teams with the best talent. Teams go through different stages of development that must be managed carefully. Conflict is sometimes necessary for people to resolve differences and focus on key objectives. Managers should be well conversant with the causes of conflict and be able to handle it effectively in the workplace. Difficult employees may influence their colleagues to adapt the same behavior if businesses do not handle them in the correct manner. So you can see all these bullet points underneath the introduction relates to the bullet points that was asked in the question. Alright, so any other relevant introduction relating to either stages of team development, causes of conflict, conflict resolution, or dealing with difficult people, and your introduction is worth 2 marks. So if you write the word introduction, your 2 introductory facts, there we will indicate an L for the layout. Then your first bullet point, the first subheading, outline the characteristics of successful team performance. So outline, you'll get double ticks at the end of your fact. Successful teams share a common goal as team members are part of the process of setting goals for the group. There's a climate of respect, trust, and honesty. Share a set of team values and implement group decisions. Successful teams have sound intra-team relations. Teams value the contribution of individual members and reach consensus on differences. Team members enjoy open communication and deal with items of conflict immediately. Teams are accountable and members know the time frame for achieving their goals. Teams pay attention to the needs of the individual team members. All right, so it doesn't specify the number of facts, so you can give as many facts as possible. And also just remember for your essay, please write your facts below each other, not next to each other. It's just easier for the marker. Right, the second bullet point says discuss 4 stages of team development. Right, so it's specific there, it says 4. So you're only going to discuss 4 stages of team development. If you discuss more, they're only going to mark the first 4. So you're going to get 2 marks for naming the stage and 2 marks for describing the stage, which gives you a sub-max of 4 for each stage in team development. Right, so the first one, forming. This is where individuals gather information and impressions about each other and the scope of task and how to approach it. Teams are comfortable and polite with each other during this stage. People focus on being busy with routines such as team organization, who does what, when to meet, etc. Then we have, so list 2 marks and then 1 fact for 2 marks, which gives you a sub-max of 4. So remember, right, the second stage, storming, 2 marks for naming and 2 marks for the description. So this is easy marks, people. Teams go through a period of unease, conflict after formation. Different ideas from team members will compete for consideration. Team members open up to each other and confront each other's ideas. Tension, arguments occur and upset team members. There may be power struggles for the position of team leader. In some instances, storming can be resolved quickly, while in others, the team never leaves the stage. Many teams fail during this stage as they're not focused on the task. This phase can become destructive for the team. It will negatively impact on team performance if allowed to get out of control. This stage is necessary for the growth of the team. Some team members tolerate each other to survive this stage. Third stage, norming, settling, or reconciliation. 2 marks for naming. Team members come to an agreement and reach consensus. Roles and responsibilities are clear and accepted. Processes, working style, and respect develop among members. Team members have the ambition to work for the success of the team. Conflict may occur, but commitment and unity are strong. Then the last one, performing or working as a team towards a goal, 2 marks. Team members are aware of strategies and aims of the team. They have direction without interference from the leader. Processes and structures are set. Leaders delegate and oversee processes and procedures. All members are now competent, autonomous, and able to handle the decision-making process without supervision. Differences among members are appreciated and used to enhance the team's performance. And in the last one, adjourning or mourning. Here the focus is the completion of the task or ending the project. Breaking up the team may be traumatic as team members may find it difficult to perform as individuals again. All tasks need to be completed before the team finally dissolves. So here the maximum is 16 marks because each of the 4 stages count 4 marks. So you'll see here, this is easy marks. So for the 4 stages, naming the 4 stages, 8 marks. And then 2 marks each for explaining, which gives you a total of 16 marks. Third bullet point, explain how businesses can handle conflict in the workplace. Right, so here they're not specific as to the number of facts, so you write as many facts as possible. Acknowledge that there is conflict in the workplace. Identify the cause of the conflict. Arrange pre-negotiations where workers or the complainants will be allowed to state their case separately. Arrange time and place for negotiations where all employees involved are present. Arrange a meeting between conflicting employees. Make intentions for intervention clear so that the parties involved may feel at ease. Each party has the opportunity to express his or her own opinions or feelings. Conflicting parties may recognize that their views are different during the meeting. Analyze the cause of the conflict by breaking it down into different parts. Blame shifting should be avoided and a joint effort should be made. Direct conflict parties towards finding solutions. Brainstorm possible ways of resolving the conflict. Conflicting parties agree on criteria to evaluate alternatives. Select and implement the best solution, and also provide opportunities for parties to agree on the best solution. So even though it shows maximum 12 marks, you can give as many facts as you want because they are not specific as to the number of facts that you need to give. Right, and the last bullet point says, the third, explain how to handle conflict and make sure marks are necessary. Please take note of the following. Explain how to handle difficult people in the workplace versus to explain how to handle different types of personalities in the workplace. So the question says explain how businesses could handle conflict in the workplace. So please don't confuse that and lose unnecessary marks. Right, so it says explain how businesses can handle conflict in the workplace. So just take note of that. Right in the last bullet point, make sure you answer what is asked. So the question asks how to handle conflict, not how to handle difficult people or how to handle different types of difficult personalities in the workplace. In the last bullet point, suggest ways in which, so the last subheading, suggest ways in which businesses could deal with difficult people in the workplace. So suggest, you will get double ticks at the end of your fact. So get perspective from others who have experienced the same kind of situation to be able to understand difficult employees. Act proactively if possible as staff or personnel as part of manager's responsibility. Regular meetings with supervisors should help to identify difficult behavior. Ask someone in authority for their input into the situation. Identify the type of personality which is creating the problem. Meet privately with difficult employees so that there are no distractions from other employees. Make intentions and reasons for actions known so that difficult person feel at ease. Employees should be told what specific behaviors are acceptable by giving details about what is wrong, unacceptable, and also an opportunity to explain their behavior. A deadline should be set for improving difficult behavior. The deadline date should be discussed with the difficult employer and his or her progress should be monitored or assessed prior to the deadline. Guidelines for improvement should be given. Do not judge the person, but try to understand him or her. Understand his or her intentions and why he or she reacts in a certain way. Alright, so that is the end of question 6, the last subheading. Then next to your fourth subheading, the marker will indicate an A. And if your facts add up to 16 or more, the second A will be indicated next to the last bullet point under the last subheading. Then we have a conclusion. We write the word conclusion, and we need one concluding fact relating to any of the 4 bullet points, which you obviously haven't discussed in the introduction or the body of the essay. Right, so you also get in the L next to the word conclusion. You write the word conclusion, one concluding fact. So that gives you 2 marks for the layout of the essay, because you've written the word introduction, you've written 2 facts underneath the introduction, you've written the word conclusion, you've written one concluding fact. That gives you 2 marks for the layout. The A, you have the 4 subheadings, which is the 4 bullet points that you need to discuss. You get the 1A for analysis, and then the other mark for analysis. Your facts add up to 16 or more, you get the second A. Synthesis, you're not off topic. Most of the time learners always get, most of the time they get the 2 marks for synthesis. And then originality, that is where learners hardly get marks, where they can get full marks for the essay. They leave out the O for originality. So 2 current examples relating to any of the 4 bullet points that you any of the 4 bullet points that have been asked in the question. Right, grade 12, that is the end of the session. So your teacher will go through the answers for the 3 tests after the session, the multiple choice, the choose the correct word. There we go. And then match column A with column B.